This week we are going to start looking at one of the three ethical principles we will be studying this semester in class. The first one is personal responsibilities. And so what we're going to start doing from this point on is I am going to look at, again, we're going to do three issues: personal responsibilities, we're going to do confidentiality, and then we're going to do client rights. So those are the three sort of big main areas of ethics that we need to look at in the helping profession. So you guys all have a copy of the Human Services Codes of Ethics. If you remember, on week one, you took those codes of ethics and you looked over them and you did an assignment that said what you understood and what you didn't understand. So those codes of ethics are, these principles are built into those codes of ethics. So it is the code of ethic is the bigger part of it, and those principles kind of feed into it. Okay, so it's two different things. So I'm going to talk more about those principles. So within those codes of ethics, you'll find ethical codes that deal with these principles. Likewise, when we start working on confidentiality, you'll find ethical codes that deal with confidentiality. So we're going to look at kind of what the overall principle is at first, and then we will go into specific codes of ethics that address this principle. Okay, so you're all really confused. So anyway, so ethical principles for the helping professional, we're going to talk about personal responsibilities. So even though a person is, you are like everyone in most respects, there's a difference because you have a unique role in society. So basically you live in a fishbowl, and so people see you and they expect certain things of you, especially if you're a counselor or a therapist. So one of those, so because of that, you need to follow these principles as you're guiding. So these principles are addressed in the codes of ethics, right? So it's kind of like when I say living in a fishbowl. So I'm a substance abuse counselor, right? And so that is my profession. I'm also a college professor. Let's say I got intoxicated and got into a fight and it made it into the newspaper. What do you think it would say? It probably would say college professor or substance abuse counselor got into a fight, right? It wouldn't say Sally Dellinger got into a fight. That's because we live in a fishbowl, so people know what I do, and they're going to know what you do. So because of that, it's important that helping professionals maintain high standards of personal conduct. And you have to recognize that while you have the same rights as other individuals in terms of how you act, you should not conduct yourself privately in a way that might jeopardize your ability to function professionally, because people, whether we like it or not, sort of identify us based on our professional role. Okay, so you should strive to live your personal lives according to the principles that govern your professional life. So, like for example, if I'll use myself again, I work with people with substance use disorders, and a lot of times one of the plans for those people with substance use disorders is that they don't drink. Now, does that mean I shouldn't drink? It just means that I have to conduct myself in a manner that's congruent with what I'm doing, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means I need to practice what I preach, for lack of a better word. Okay. It should be recognized that helping professionals, again, this was we live in the fishbowl thing. So helping professionals, kind of eyes are on us at all times. And so things that we do are recognized and they are seen. Helping professionals are free to make your own choices, but you need to remember that your personal choice can have an impact on your professional life. For example, my code of ethics for my profession says if I get arrested for an alcohol or drug-related charge, they'll revoke my counseling license. So that's not to say, that's not, it might not be that way for other counseling licenses, but it is that way for substance abuse counselors. Okay, so part of how a person is going to maintain that one of the personal responsibilities is improving your own professional competence. So that means having education and training in what you're doing. Further, it means that you shouldn't do anything that you're not specifically trained for. That's what professional competence means. So we have the ethical responsibility to make continuous efforts to improve our competence and our professional specialty. We shouldn't claim directly or indirectly or by implication that we have credentials that we do not. It's important not to confuse personal interest or experience with professional training and expertise. I'm having a hard time moving this down. There we go. So you should not claim that you have credentials that you don't have, and you shouldn't practice if you're not qualified. So, and again, this is an ethical issue. So any one of you in this program could say, I'm working on a PhD, right? So you might be working towards a PhD, but when you say things like that to clients, it makes them think that you are in graduate school. Technically, you all are, if that's your goal, working on that higher education, but that's not where you are now. So the other thing that's important here is that personal interest or experience is not professional training. We get that a lot with people who are in recovery or who have experienced certain situations. You certainly do have an edge probably, but it's not training. So ethical codes require that you hold yourself to an ethical standard. It also requires that you insist others do the same. What this means is that if someone else is practicing beyond their scope, you are required here to make sure that they are not harming clients. So in all the ethics things that we talk about, basically one of the things that we're looking for is it in the best interest of the client? And so if it's not, then we probably shouldn't do it. So we have to hold ourselves to the standards, and we also have to hold our colleagues to the standards. So if I know someone who is working outside of their area of expertise, I have to say something. The next one is the principle of professional impairment. Professional impairment means that you need to maintain a healthy mind and unimpaired emotions. That's critical to the helping profession. If you are struggling with your own behavior, you might not be able to assist others. A lot of times how we work with professional impairment is we do that by having really good supervision. So professional impairment could be anything from like a relapse, maybe with a substance abuse counselor, someone who's depressed, someone who's having issues. We ought to take care of ourselves. So we have to know when we can't do that any longer. The next principle is discrimination. So we should avoid discriminating against clients on all aspects. Helping professionals, we help people regardless of their sex, religion, age, handicap, sexual orientation, things like that. So that next principle is refrain from discriminating. Okay. So we have our own personal biases and in some cases prejudices. You just need to be aware of those. So you would need to develop competence in serving diverse populations. We have the responsibility to reach beyond our competence and be able to work with people who are different than we are. So it's not just, you can't say no. You have to, and how do we learn about people's culture? We ask, really is probably the best way to do it. You have to set fees that clients may have the ability to pay. So we have to but you also should get paid for your services. So you have to take the client's ability to pay into consideration. You have the ethical right to earn a living, and you should earn a living. And so we have to consider those things. Lots of agencies do sliding fee scales. The next principle has to do with communities and society. So these principles, we have to understand our community and our society and how it impacts what's going on in our field. We should help deepen the understanding among our communities about what's going on with mental health and things like that. So we are advocates. The next principle has to do with relationships with colleagues. So you have to cooperate with colleagues, treat them with respect and fairness and courtesy, and remember that ethical standards prohibit discrimination against all of those who we deal with professionally. Again, looking at colleagues, respect confidences that colleagues share with us. Don't exploit a conflict with a colleague in advance of your own interests. So basically, we have to so what does maintain a good working relationship with colleagues mean? It might mean something different for everyone. These are the gray areas in these ethical codes that we're looking at. Do not exploit a conflict with a colleague to advance your own interests. And we're going to have a case that looks at that. The next part of this principle is advance the standard in your profession. You represent your profession, so you should honor commitments to your employers and work with employers to improve the effectiveness of your programs. Okay, so to make you really super dizzy. All right, so personal responsibilities, we're talking about personal conduct, how you act. We're talking about professional competence, and these notes are on the LMS. We're talking about professional impairment. We're talking about discrimination. We're talking about fees. We're talking about advocates in our community, getting well with colleagues, and advance the standards of our profession and honor commitment to employers. So these are the principles that we are looking at that have to do with our personal responsibilities. So make this a little smaller. So we're going to start working on cases this week. And so these cases are all going to have to do with personal responsibilities.